Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another video. I'm your host, Rising and Blame, and today, guys, we're going to be talking about the Persona 5 Strikers PC requirement. So this is taken directly from Steam, but I wanted to talk a little bit about this. So if you have Steam, you can probably check this out yourself, but I know a lot of people don't quite know what parts are in their PC and whatnot, and this is probably going to be a lot of people's first games jumping to PC, seeing as how Persona series and the SMG series might be taking a jump to PC. I figured I'd talk about it, and it is here on Steam, so this is the direct place where you're going to be getting your Persona 5 Strikers. So I just wanted to go over this and talk about this a little bit. Even the recommended requirements for this are honestly not that, strong of a PC. You really don't have to have something like a supercomputer to run this type of thing. This isn't going to be something that is very hard to run at all. But let's just go over this stuff here. So we have the minimum requirements and we have the recommended requirements. So you're going to get the best amount of performance out of this game if you get the recommended requirements. Obviously, the minimum means you could just have it running pretty much, and it's just running at a pretty okay rate. Recommended is what you should try and do if you want to get the best experience possible out of Persona 5 Strikers. But let's just go over the minimum requirements. So it says it requires a 64-bit processor and operating system. I know a lot of people freak out about this. You don't understand what a 64-bit operating system is. Pretty much any super up-to-date version of Windows. Microsoft Windows, is pretty much always trying to update you to have the 64-bit version, and honestly, you're probably running a 64-bit version no matter what. I really wouldn't worry about this too much. I mean, if you have a Windows 10 computer or a PC or a laptop or whatever, you could even run this game on a laptop. Like I said, it's not very, recommending a lot of power to have this thing actually run. You do not have to have a strong computer to have this thing run. Any up-to-date version of Windows 10 more than likely is a 64-bit processor / operating system. If not, you could just have your computer update and you'll be fine. It says OS 64 bits. We already know that. So you need an Intel Core i5 or a AMD FX 6350, which honestly is pretty damn old as well. Most new computers are actually coming with at least i7 or i9 or better. You pretty much are going to be guaranteed to have a pretty good PC, at least if you bought within the past couple of years. I built my computer like 5 years ago, and i7 was considered to be still just pretty regular. It wasn't something that was considered to be super good. So you need at least an Intel Core i5 or better. AMD is a little bit of a gray zone for me, but that is probably not a very hard to grab processor either. 6 gigabytes of RAM, which is honestly kind of an oddball. I don't know who's out there with 6 gigabytes of RAM. Either you have 4, 8, 16, 32, something like that. So you probably have 8 gigabytes of RAM, which is what the recommended is. An NVIDIA GeForce GTX 660, 2 gigabytes of VRAM is what that means. An AMD Radeon HD 7870, 2 gigabytes of VRAM as well, which is what that means also. This is a pretty old graphics card, and even the recommended is not that much better. It's only up just a little bit more. You honestly do not see a giant jump here. AMD, you see the biggest jump because it jumps to a 3 gigabyte graphics card. So you have a little bit of a bigger jump there when it comes to having the recommended amount. But even if you're a person who really is just not trying to buy a brand new graphics card to play this game, you're going to be fine. DirectX, the 11th version, and 10 gigabyte space of the storage or your SSD or whatever. It says 20 unrecommended. I think this might be because of the soundtrack and the extra DLC and stuff like that. That might be what this means. It recommends you to have 20 because of the extra downloadable content coming out either in the future or that just comes pre-ordered with this game. Like I said, we're getting the soundtrack and I think the art book and a bunch of different stuff depending on which version of the game you get. So they might be trying to recommend you to get a bigger amount of storage for this game, but it seems like just the base game itself is just going to be 10 gigabytes, which honestly is pretty good. It says 10 gigabytes available space. It might not be exactly 10 gigabytes, but going ahead, we can assume that this is going to be about 10 gigabytes, and with all the extra DLC and different stuff like that, the soundtrack and stuff, it recommends having 20, so we can expect anything over at least 10 when it comes to having all of the extra content. So if you're a person who is cramped right now for hard drive space, maybe free up a little bit so you could just have enough to be able to play this game. So that's pretty much all you need in terms of storage. Anywhere between 10 to 20 at least, you'll be doing just fine. I don't see a lot of people out there now being able to sacrifice 10 gigs for a game. This is a pretty small game. It's ran pretty easy, but I know a lot of you had questions and you were talking to me about it, so I wanted to make sure I can make this video. Let's go over the recommended real quick and talk about that. So as you can see, it's still 64-bit. The processors are not honestly all that much different compared to what is on the minimum. They're a little bit better, obviously, but the 8 gigabytes of RAM, I have 16. I think 16 is pretty normal. So 8 gigabytes is probably something you could see in a current day laptop. If you have a desktop, you have probably 16. You can go to your system and actually check these type of things out if you are curious about that. NVIDIA GTX 680, that's like old as dirt. I mean, even my processor is a 1080, and that's considered to be super old. So if you've bought a PC within the recent years, you're probably doing all right. You're probably doing all right with a AMD as well, so don't really worry about that. All of this stuff here is pretty much what we're going to be seeing, having at least 10 to 20 gigabytes free of space, at least a graphics card within the past like 10 years or something like that, 8 gigabytes of RAM, a decent processor, like I said, within like the last 10 years. I do not see anybody having a hard time playing this unless you're literally playing on a PC that's like 15 years old or a laptop that's maybe like 8 to 10 years old. You probably would doing, just fine with the type of stuff you have currently right now. But these are the specs required for this. Keep in mind, yes, there is the minimum amount, but the recommended amount is what you're going to be wanting if you're trying to play this game at like 1080p, the best, possible way you can. Unfortunately, it is locked at 60 frames. So even if you're a person who's like, man, I got a, super awesome freaking PC, I'm going to rank up that FPS. Well, unfortunately, Strikers, for some reason, does not let you do that. For some reason, the game is locked at 60 frames, but we could potentially see some updates here in the future. I don't really know. This game, honestly, doesn't look the best, and it actually doesn't have the highest frame rate when it comes to jumping to PC. Honestly, if you're playing this game on PC, or if you're playing it on like your PlayStation 4 Pro, you're probably not seeing a very huge difference, to be completely honest. When it comes to that, you're probably not seeing a big difference in frame rate, because they're locking it for some reason on PC to 60 frames. I'd understand if it's turn-based like we had, with past Persona games, Persona 4 Golden, that's turn-based. Yes, you do run around in the town and stuff like that, but turn-based, it doesn't really matter too much. You're not seeing a lot of big flowing type of action like you are seeing in Strikers. Strikers, you see them swinging around, fighting, punching, stuff like that. There's a lot of quick moving action, which would have been better to have if we could have the uncapped frame rate, because that would look so much smoother. But unfortunately, like I said, this game is locked at 60 frames, so your computer should be able to run, at least with these specs here, and it'll be able to run the game at 60 frames per second if you do have the recommended. I'm sure if you don't have the recommended, or you have at least just the minimum, you probably could lower the frame rate, or it's not going to at least run at a 60 frames. So if you're a person who has the specs that look like this, maybe try and get this thing on your PS4. If you have a PS4, don't do the whole PC jump. If you're a person who at least has this in the recommended stuff, 20 gigs, 8 gigabytes of RAM, a i5 at least, a GTX 680 at least, then I would recommend playing this on here, because it will run at least a bit smoother or a bit better than what your PS4 would run. But if you have anywhere above these specs, you should be completely fine and buy this thing on PC. It's probably going to run and play a bit better on PC. It really just depends on the port. Persona 4 Golden is the best thing we have right now to sort of compare the two things. I know a lot of people are iffy on the ports, especially if it's not directly from Atlus himself, but it does look like this is going to be directly from Atlus, so we have a pretty good chance of seeing a really, really good port with this thing coming to PC. But that's it for now, guys. Hopefully that helped you a little bit when it came to the PC specs and whether or not you want to actually take the jump to have this game on PC. We're, about, 15 to like 20 days away, depending on when I upload this, for Strikers to come out. And if you have the deluxe version, you're getting it a couple days earlier than that. So I figured I'd help you guys out on that. A lot of people have been asking me what the requirements are for this. So this is the requirements for it. Hopefully this helped you decide whether or not you want to take the jump to PC, or if you wanted to double dip, get a PC version and a console version, and whether or not it will actually run for you. So that's going to be it for this video. Like, comment, subscribe, click the bell when you want to be notified whenever I make a new video or when I go live. As always, I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.